next segment. It's time now for Media Watch with James Creedon. Hello,
Thanks,
James. You're going to talk us through this photo that went completely viral over the weekend from the G7 summit.
That's right. No Media Watch over the weekend, and I was kind of keeping an eye on this, thinking, such a pity. By Monday, it'll, people won't be talking about it anymore. But they still are. I suppose it was just so memeable, but it also, it really is a case of a picture speaking 1,000 words, I suppose, in terms of illustrating those tensions that became so clear at this year's G7 summit, to the point that people are calling it the G6+1 or G7-1. You can see here, in any case, the photo published on Angela Merkel's Instagram account. It shows her quite stern and businesslike on front of a seated Donald Trump with various other leaders assembled around. The comments varied from viewing Trump as being a scolded, petulant child, looking defiant with his arms crossed. Others saying that it's almost like Angela Merkel, is treating him like a child in some respects, and Donald Trump saying our relationship is a 10. That's a reference to remarks he made about his very good relations with various European countries from his perspective. Notably, he didn't give the UK a 10 out of 10 result in terms of that relationship. The woman leader of the free world telling Trump how it is, awesome photo, and others just simply saying that in terms of the body language, it's just an incredible image, and really what you see there is Trump, from this person's perspective, cowering in front of Merkel.
And so we've just talked about the body language. There are also spin-offs and many memes across social media.
There are indeed, and a lot of attention being given to them as well. I think they came a little bit later in the day, but we were talking about a petulant child there, and you can see again that image speaking even more loudly, a slightly cuddlier version there of same said petulant child. And others saying really that this is an image that sums up quite an historic summit and a break from the alliances of the past. Many people feeling that it's kind of a seismic shift really in terms of the alliances that have been there perhaps since the end of the Second World War even. And so art history memes were buzzing around online as well. This one here meant to depict sort of a Renaissance look. And one person on social media took it one step further, imagining it in an art gallery. And now, just to kind of look at some of the some further analysis of the political communications involved, Le Point Newsweekly in France spoke to Stéphane Seibert, who is Angela Merkel's spokesperson, and he essentially confirmed what the image depicts in terms of the intention behind the image, which is to show Angela Merkel as a firm leader, bearing in mind that there are huge differences between the US and Germany, amongst many other countries at the moment, over trade and tariffs. The US saying, you put tariffs on our cars, we can't import them in the same way that you can export your cars to the US. So it's a pretty stiff and stern standoff, if you like, and I suppose Angela Merkel trying to show that she will remain firm in the face of all of that. You actually had one journalist for Germany's T-Online website, Fabian Reinbold, who looked at that same image from the point of view of different countries. Now, this is the same moment as published by Emmanuel Macron's team, and you can see there Angela Merkel not quite so front and centre of that image. In fact, it's more of a Franco-German alliance, you would say. Certainly Macron more present in that particular scene. Here you have, Donald Trump's team depicting, he looks kind of surrounded there, almost in an intimidating manner, if I'm just to read it purely on the image.
But look at the smiles on their faces.
This is true.
Bolton.
The petulant child is absent, right? He has absented himself. Now, this is an interesting piece of analysis as well by Elizabeth Veiling, who is a political communications commentator at Berkeley. She says in German that it's a 1-0 win for the US president because he is seated, whereas the others are standing almost in assembly around him. You could reimagine this in his favour, i.e. he's the one who is exceptional in this image. So lots of different ways of analysing that photo.
And very briefly, do you think that there's any way that they can link Trump's behaviour at the summit to this historic meeting that he's having with Kim Jong-un in Singapore? I
think there is, and I think a lot of commentators are saying, hold on a minute, why this big display of being a difficult and intransigent leader right ahead of a key summit. Some would say that it's no coincidence. Here in the New York Times, they speak about him being isolated before the North Korea meeting, which is, I think, how many people would have read it on the surface of things. But actually, in that article, they speak to a New York Republican Representative Peter King, who called the episode a warning shot to Kim Jong-un in keeping with Mr. Trump's approach to negotiations. This is the Trump style of getting things done, and so far it's working. So that's another perspective. That's the pro-Trump perspective. In other words, this might not be complete and utter madness. Trump's vulgarity could be the one diplomatic style Kim Jong-un understands. That's Simon Jenkins there for The Guardian, saying that the one virtue of Trump's diplomatic style is blatancy. It turns its back on politesse. It is loud, personal, real, and leaves little scope for misunderstanding. Just conceivably, it could be the one diplomacy that Kim understands. ...
Keep a close eye on that. James Creedon, thank you for looking so closely at that photo that went viral over the weekend. Thanks, and Kate Moody with our business segment. That's it for us. Do stay tuned for more news coming up in 3 minutes' time.